Before we begin today's podcast, we've got a quick word from our sponsor. Sunday of the NFL season is here, and the excitement continues with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. DraftKings is giving all new customers a can't-miss offer to celebrate the return of the NFL season. Bet just $1 on any football game this weekend and receive $200 in free bets instantly, no matter what. That's right, DraftKings Sportsbook is giving all new customers $200 in free bets instantly when they bet at least $1 on any football game. DraftKings is safe, reliable, and secure, making it easy for you to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code THPN to receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any Week 1 game. That's promo code THPN to get your free $200 in free bets instantly this weekend at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older in New Jersey, Indiana, and Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Welcome, everyone, to the Islanders.
Hold on. I have a quick question.
Yeah, bro. Sure. Quick
so
question.
If you bet $1, you get $200 in credits. Is that correct? Is that how that ad works?
In free bets. Yeah, Grump.
So you don't even have to win?
No. Hey, this is right up your alley. You don't have to win or be successful, and you can go ahead.
Even I can come up with $1. Even I can do that.
Oh, look at that.
All right, I'm sorry. Go into your introduction.
Oh, welcome to the Islanders Never Say Die podcast. I'm your host, TJ, and with me again, as always, is NHL analyst and expert, the grumpy old man. They say there is no shame in his game because he is always the same.
That's me. And we have a special guest. I'm not going to let you butcher the intro for the special guest. When you bring on a guest, you do whatever it is you do. You make them look small. You don't make them look important, whatever. When I bring on a guest, I'm going to pump them up, okay? Our special guest today is Stanley Cup winning left wing, Mike. Were you left wing?
Right wing, yeah.
Winger for the New York Rangers. Your New York Rangers. Only kidding, people. Mike Hartman. And I just want to give you a little background. I've known Mike Hartman for a lot of years, more years than I care to remember. Originally, when he was down here in Charlotte, he moved back to Hoboken, New Jersey. TJ, who was born in Hoboken, New Jersey? Do you remember?
You had to give me a little precursor. It was Frank Sinatra.
That's right, Frank Sinatra. And Mike Hartman was living there for a while. Now he's back in the Charlotte area. Mike, what have you been up to?
Keeping busy. We were in Hoboken the last 3 years, which was a lot of fun. Did a lot of work with the Rangers alumni. I got to be careful on the show. Try to mumble it so we don't upset people. I don't want to hurt people's feelings, but I have a surprise for you, like I said. So I've been in the Hoboken area. I've had a program that I've been doing for years where I sold assessments, and then I sold my assessment company, and I'm in the e-learning now. So everything online. So online e-learning we have some health and wellness. We have customer loyalty and leadership, and we work with a lot of companies living back in Charlotte, and happy to be back.
And you can, by the way, you can find all of Mike's information and details to Mike Hartman Academy, as well as his podcast, which we've got linked in the description below. You can find that all down there. And again, before, Grumpy, you like how when you try to do an introduction, you always jump all over me, how I don't go ahead and promote subscribing to the podcast on YouTube, liking on Facebook, and following on Twitter. Do you like how the one time I let you take the reins, Grumpy, you screw it up? All I've got to say is, Grump, I sit here and I just put a smile on my face.
You know what? You want to take a cheap shot at me? That's fine.
That's exactly what I'm trying to do, take a cheap shot at you.
Mike, what's the name of your podcast, by the way?
The Mike Hartman Show.
Hey, like the Merv Griffin Show, kind of like.
Yeah, like the Mike Hartman Show. I had a different name, and I realized that, you had to trademark that name and go through all of that. It was like the mindset of a champion. Then somebody else used that. So what I did is I just called it the Mike Hartman Show, because I know there's not a lot of Mike Hartmans out there. There was a Mike Hartman rock star guy. I know that, but there's not a lot of people that are doing podcasts. So I just kept the name. My daughter did the design, and that's the story, and I'm sticking with it.
Keep it all in the family. I like that. Now, people are going to say, grumpy old man, how do you know? You say you know Mike. How do you know him? When my children were younger, Mike was in Charlotte, and he was teaching skills classes for young players. And, so that's how I met him. And, it's always funny for people who don't know a whole lot about Mike Hartman. He wasn't what I would call a goal scorer. He wasn't an assist man. I would say that he was a rough and tumble player. Had at least one season. I'm going to look this up because I don't want to get it wrong. One season over 300 minutes in penalties, and a couple over 200. So well over 200. And so you would say that Mike, and those, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, those were not like hooking penalties and interference penalties, right?
No, I played a physical game, but like I told my kids, they went to school here, and I didn't realize one of their teachers were from Buffalo, and my son plays lacrosse, and I didn't want him to watch the videos like that were on YouTube because people would post these videos. Monty, one of them actually, of all people that I was sitting in his house, and he put a couple of these videos up at one time. We were going to use it for my business, long story short, and those stayed. Other people put up these different videos, and shows a lot of fighting and hitting. But if you type in goals, I did score 11 goals one year. It's not a bad year for I played, I think, 70 games or 60 games. I got 60 games. I got hurt really bad. Missed a bunch of games, missed about 20 games to injury in Buffalo. So I did score some, but my job was more to play physical. I did kill penalties a little bit, not on the Rangers though. And the job was to play that physical game, be more of an energy player. I was too small, barely. They had me listed at 6'1", and I'm just about 6 foot. So when they list that, and then I got guys like like Vakota coming at me, and Baumgartner, and all these big boys, and it wasn't fun.
Well, yeah. I think that's a good question, or that's a good statement, right? How the game has evolved in some sorts, and again, you don't see the physical style, the physical nature. You don't see as many enforcers in today's game as you used to, back 10, 15 years ago. Wanted to kind of get your take and input on that. Is that something you think has kind of ruined or put a sour taste in certain fans' mouths, or is that something for the betterment of the game?
Well, there was guys that they could still play. You had a guy like Dave Brown, who was a scary man, 6'5". He was there. Every guy had a designated guy, but you have to be able to play. You just didn't play in the Sunshine League. That's like the low minor leagues where some of these guys are from Western Canada, and they played a little bit in their junior league, and they just dropped the gloves. And there wasn't much. You have to be able to play at that level. So everybody had a designated guy. Like Baumgartner for the Islanders, and he was one of the toughest guys I've ever played against. But they sent him to Europe when he played for the LA Kings. I'm a stat guy with you, grumpy old man, because we could talk a lot about stats. I know a lot about a lot of that, and I'll tell you how later on. But the guy like Baumgartner was sent to played for Los Angeles in the organization. Before he went to New Haven, they sent him to Sweden to work on his skills. So he was a tough guy, but they really worked with him and developed him. And they said, listen, you're going to play in the pro league in Sweden. You're going to play a lot. Then he came back over. Then we got to New Haven. Not a lot of guys knew him that were from the Ontario League. And he put 3 guys in the hospital right away. But, but he was a physical guy that was a smart. He's an intelligent guy too, a very smart guy. A lot of guys like Alan May was a designated tough guy. He had a lot of minutes, but he could play. He's an announcer in the NHL. Probert could play both ways. So back in those days, they had that, and there was always somebody there to look out for you. So just Joey Koser, he was our tough guy, but he didn't fight all the time. If you look at it, he probably had 130 penalty minutes because nobody wanted to do it. By him just being there, we were comforted, and like the Rangers this year, they got their guy, and they needed that because look what happened. So you need somebody there to just be there just in case. And I remember what happened was they were taking the physicality out of the game. And then you'd read more about guys like Crosby going down injured, more players being hurt. guys that were not real tough guys taking liberties on superstars. And that just opened the floodgates for the game to change, I thought. But I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed the playoffs because it was a lot of if you watch the playoffs, I don't watch a lot of hockey on TV. I ended up watching the playoffs and it was physical.
Yeah.
So that part of the game, I enjoy the physical. I don't like dirty hockey. I never got suspended in the NHL for any length of time for doing anything. So I wasn't that type of a guy. So I always respect the guys like the Rick Tocchet's in the old days, who was tough as nails for the Flyers, but he could play. I like those guys. So
I hated him because he played for the Flyers. So I'm sure he's a nice guy. You know, one thing I noticed, every single tough guy in the league, they're really, really nice people when you meet them. Like Mike Hartman, for instance, when he was running that camp, I mean, I only saw him beat up 3 or 4 parents when he was teaching the kids, and it's only if they said anything. So, you know, they get that reputation being really nasty people, but they're really nice. They're really, really nice people. And Mike, I'm just going to speak out of line. I'm just going to say, you're a really nice guy too, even though you play for the Rangers. Sorry.
No, but wait, I know you guys know your stats. I just emailed it to you, so I don't know if you look, but I was an Islander.
Is it Prince George Islanders?
No. Look at your email.
I'll have to pull that up. I'll make sure we get that pulled up for us. I'll make sure we get this here, Mike. But you were an Islander. Tell me a little more. Let's see. Okay. Oh man. Oh man. Let's see. These are some old ones here, grumpy old man.
So you're going to have to post that for me.
You're going to have to give me a sec, Grumpy. I'll get it pulled there.
Okay,
but he was an Islander.
Did you see it? Did you look at it and were you able to see it?
I'm about to pull that up and put it on screen here. But you were an Islander. We'll go ahead and get to that.
So
now,
I'm proud to be an Islander. I mean, I was also a Philadelphia Flyer for 1 hour because I was put on waivers, and they had recallable waivers. So I was an Islander, but also I was also with the Flyers. There we are, Oak Park Islanders in Detroit.
Oh, there you go. Look at that.
Captain number 9, Clark Gillies was my idol. And I ended up rooming with Clark Gillies in Buffalo. He the end of his career. So there it is. Oh, I can't exaggerate that. So I was an Islander, proud to be.
Now, how do you still have that picture? Where'd you get that from?
Well, you know, my father was a photography. I wrote, my daughter wrote it really, but I wrote it's on my website. I'm not here to be self-promotion, but it was on Amazon and I took it off Amazon. It was a book. And the whole story behind that is the truth. If you read it, was Clark Gillies ended up being my hero as a kid. So I wore number 9. At that time, Gillies was in his first or second year with the Islanders. And I ended up playing with Clark Gillies. So it was one of those coincidences that I posted that even though I played for the Oak Park Islanders, I roomed with number 9 when he was with Buffalo. We called him the Sleeping Bear.
Tell me a little more about that. You said you played with your child. Now tell me, how did that feel? I assume it's got to feel surreal when you're playing with a childhood idol. I assume that's what you felt during that time period.
Well, I told a story how they had me rooming with him. So I think I was 19. He might have been, 30, 35 maybe, towards the end of his career. I don't remember, 30. He was up there anyways. And all he said was in Montreal, they had the adjoining rooms. So meaning like we share the same room, but he goes to his to the left, I go to mine to the right. And sometimes, I always did this when I was a kid, I talk in my sleep. So he said, there's 2 rules here. The first thing is don't talk in your sleep. And the second thing is be careful of my Stanley Cup ring that he had on the counter. I didn't want to touch it. I was afraid it was going to fall in the toilet. He goes, be careful of my Stanley Cup ring in the bathroom. If you're sleepwalking and knock it in the toilet, we're going to have a problem. So I always made sure I didn't even touch his ring. I wanted to. I was in the bathroom and I see a Stanley Cup ring with the Islanders. I said, hey, just leave it alone. My luck, I put it in the toilet.
Well, it's funny. Now you have your own Stanley Cup ring. Can we take a look at that? Do you have that just laying around?
I do. I took it out for you because I knew you were going to ask.
People, this is what we play for every year. This is what we play for. Okay. So when everyone hears and says to me, grumpy old man, aren't you happy with the Islanders coming in, fourth every year or, qualifying for the Eastern Conference Finals? The answer is no. Why? Because I want everyone on our team to have a ring like Mike Hartman has. That's what I want.
Well, I played with a really good guy. His name is Greg Gilbert, and he was on the Islanders. He's a terrific guy. He was just a super guy. Great teammate. I have a long history of different Islanders, and I'm friends with Benoit Hogue. Spent a lot of time with him. I mean, there's a bunch of guys because back in the day, I don't know if you knew, Buffalo made a big trade.
Yep.
With
the Islanders, the Turgeon deal, where Patty LaFontaine went back the other way.
We lived together in Buffalo, Pierre and I. And the funny thing was, the John Muckler came in and said he's cleaning house. So he sent half the guys to the Islanders and then 4 of us to Winnipeg. And at that time, I said, "Really, Winnipeg? Damn!" My dog didn't even want to go outside. He was depressed at the time. So I ended up going to Winnipeg, but I almost went to the Islanders. They took, Yui Krupp was part of that deal, and Benoit Hogue. I think Joe Ricci as well. Joe Ricci was a really good, steady defenseman. That was a great trade. And LaFontaine, a Detroit guy, really another nice guy, ended up coming to Buffalo.
Yeah, and as everyone remembers, that trade led the way for us having our semifinal appearance, where we wound up losing to Montreal 4-1. I forget how many games were overtime games, 3 or maybe all 4, and Patrick Waugh beat us. That was where our pal Dale Hunter claims that we had Rob Schremp on our last podcast, and he asked Dale Hunter about that cheap shot. I call it a cheap shot hit on Pierre Turgeon, and he's sticking to the story that he did not hear the whistle. I mean, he saw the puck over the net.
Yeah, I don't know. Pierre's a good friend of mine. Pierre, one of my best friends is Stefan Matteau, and Stefan lives in West Palm. Pierre just moved to West Palm, Pierre Turgeon, and we are very close. And I have my mother there, my family, everybody's in West Palm except my son is here, and I ended up not going. All my family is in that area, so we were almost thinking about going, trying to convince my son. But I'm happy you're here. But Pierre's in West Palm, and I don't know if that was an accident. Looking back, that was pretty blatant. Sometimes things look like, like Claude Lemieux. That was an accident. What he did to Draper, he didn't mean to break his jaw, knock all his teeth out. But
he didn't hear the whistle either. That's the thing. I didn't hear the whistle.
How about the guy that took the slap shot at the referee years ago? He didn't hear the whistle.
That's the whole thing, TJ. So when I screw up something on the podcast or I get on your nerves, I just didn't hear the whistle. So
the guy that hit the referee in Calgary, I don't remember who that was. Remember at the blue line, he just knocked the referee.
I can't remember who it was either. But that's a pretty good defense. I didn't hear the whistle. Now, I actually looked at the film afterwards. He looked at the goal going net. He sees Benoit Hogue with his arms up. He sees Turgeon going, yeah. The fans are all jumping. The horns are all going. And he takes a cheat, and he just didn't hear the whistle. He's finishing his check, I guess. I don't know.
It's almost like when TJ is quiet. I don't know if he's it, but it's usually when you ever go out and they never, if you go to a restaurant in the day, they never give you less money. They'll never give you more money back. They'll give you less. Oh, it's a mistake, right? Just like we don't hear the whistle. I never get more money. Like when the bank makes a mistake with my account at Wells Fargo, oh, sorry, there's been a little mistake on your account. They never put more money in. It's always something going out. Same thing.
Yeah. Speaking about that, I've got it pulled up. I'm sure they'll show us the little replay. Oh, man. Talking about that hit.
But the ref just fell.
Dennis Weidman.
Oh, it was an accident.
No.
He got in the way. He was trying to get over the boards. He's got to use that motion to get over.
Oh, man. I bet you Dennis Weidman sat out after that one for a bit.
Chris Weidman.
Oh, Chris Weidman. Sorry, bro.
Nice bungle of the guy's name.
I try, Grumpy. I try, but I got it pulled up for us. What can I say? I wanted to ask too. The rivalry between the Islanders and the Rangers has been. It used to be much more fierce, have a lot more vitriol than it does now. We're at a time period where I think the rivalry and the aggression, the fan bases, and I would even venture to say the players has kind of dwindled a little bit. Do you think they have the same exact the Islanders versus the Rangers carries the same exact gusto as it used to back in, the 90s and items like that? Or is it kind of faded a little bit?
I don't know, because I went to, I was one of those guys that didn't watch sports on TV. It was kind of funny. One of my clients, I would never say their name, he works at the bank, and he goes, "Man, did you watch the Ranger and LA play in the finals?" I said, "No, I was watching Caitlyn Jenner," and his mouth dropped. Like, "What do you mean you're watching?" I was a guy that used to get Wheaties, and I wanted to see, Caitlyn Jenner. People said there's something wrong with me, but the game's changed. It has changed over the years. I remember when we played the Islanders, and it turned around for us that night. If you can go look it up, they dressed Healy, and then they pulled Healy. They put Richter in. They pulled Richter, put Healy in, and they did it again. And it shows Healy actually swearing at Keenan, saying the nastiest words. You couldn't hear it, but you could see his mouth going. And we were down by a lot. And it turned out that we ended up winning that game. And it really just turned the momentum around. It was in Long Island. We have not won in the Island for years, actually. If you remember, back in 94, 93, there was a streak where we couldn't win on the Island. And we were losing 3-0. And I wasn't supposed to dress that night. I got a call from Mike Keenan. And this was the fun part about hockey. He said, "Mike," he called the room, and I was in the room, and Kiprios was listening. He goes, "Mike, you're going to play tonight, but you're not going to play. I want you to go for warm-ups because I don't think you're going to dress. Good chance is Gravy's not feeling right. His ankle's still bad, so you're going to play. Be ready to come down. Not sure if you're going for warm-ups. Don't think you're going to play, but be ready to play." I ended up playing a lot that night. That's playing for Mike Keenan. And I love Mike today. I've had some great talks, but I talk about that winning mindset, how you have to have a winning mindset. I put that out there today in Facebook, and people would answer all these different questions. But my point is, there was that rivalry. It was that intensity. But that really turned our team around. I know you don't want to hear it, but it gave us momentum towards, that was like the end of the year. That might have been a February game or January, and our team just took off from there. We were first overall that year, but it just gave us that momentum because the rivalry is, you're in for a game. And
always
the Islanders, it's going to be a game. It's going to be nasty, or fans are going to get into it. The old days, fights at the Gardens, fights at the Nassau Coliseum. So you always knew that when you're playing the Islanders, be ready. And then, they're tough guys. Got Vaseline on their face or putting their sleeves up like this. And I'm going, "Oh, great. What am I doing?"
And it's funny because, and you mentioned Glenn Healy, he was the goalie for that 1993 run. And right after that season, I want to say the Islanders put him on waivers for some reason. I don't think they traded him to the Rangers. I think he was put on waivers. I remember that being a big deal at the time. It's like, how do you let him go?
Well, they signed him to a big contract, the Rangers, a 4-year contract. I don't think they were going to re-sign him. There was something, maybe he was a free agent with compensation or something back then. But you're right. He also played in LA, Glenn. Glenn was in LA for a while. But can I tell an Islander story that people should be proud about?
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
I love history, the history of hockey. And I used to know this stuff because my father worked for the Red Wings. He'd bring home all those media guides. I'd read every one. You could tell me any Islander from 86, 85 to 94. If they played one game or not, I'll tell you where they're from and about them. We could play that little game if you want later. But the great Islander story is back in the day, Edmonton, was a young team trying to win a Stanley Cup. The Islanders were that dynasty. They were winning all those games. And what happened was, they had this great team, but after the game, when it was what was the last year they won the Stanley Cup? Was it
83?
83. Well, the Oilers in the Coliseum, you had to walk by the Edmonton, you had to walk by the Islanders dressing room to get to the bus to take you to the airport. And after that game, the players were celebrating. The door was open, but they really weren't celebrating like they used to. They had they were doing the champagne. But what they noticed is that Brian Trottier had ice bags on his face. Clark Gillies had ice bags on his body. Dennis Potvin did. Ken Morrow, I think, was missing a tooth, and he was on the training table. And that's when the Oilers said, this is what it takes to win. And they learned just by watching those veterans, at that time, what it took to win a Stanley Cup. And coincidentally, I put in Facebook today, what does it take to win? How does a champion like a Derek Jeter, the Mark Messiers, the Brian Trottiers of the world, how do they view winning? And it's not like everybody in Facebook said, oh, loyalty, being a good sport, being a good teammate. The definition with the Islanders back in the day was grit, toughness, hard as hell to win games, sacrifice, focus. And man, it's amazing when we win. And it wasn't just, we're going to go put our skates on, man. When you played the Islanders, they had Butch Goring out there with his number on his skates in the old day and that little helmet. And watching those guys play and compete. And let me tell you, they were the Islanders back in those days. They could back it up. They could score. I mean, Nystrom only played 500 games because he lost his vision in his eye, and he really couldn't take. But if you watch those guys, they were like, it was great to watch. So being an Islander fan, I think they probably want to see that same grit, not fights, but that grit, determination in trying to win a championship.
You're 100% right. It's so funny because I often tell people, how did I fall in love with being an Islander fan? That was right in my wheelhouse when I was a teenager, when they were, I remember the years when they didn't win the Stanley Cup, losing to Toronto, losing to the Rangers in '79. But it was just that determination, and everything that you just mentioned is exactly what this team is like today under Barry Trotz. It really is. TJ, you can ring the bell for me doing a compliment for Barry Trotz, which I normally do not do. But for certain, that's what he has. I just don't think we have the right players. I think we're too old to win a Stanley Cup at this point in time. But what you just mentioned is exactly what the Islanders franchise has always been about. And I always feel like it's family. I think Islander fans, it's like a family thing. And for me, that's why I'm still an Islander fan after all these many years since they came into the league. I mean, just fantastic. I have a quick question, though. You mentioned Mike Keenan. He's a love him or hate him coach. It seems like you loved him. What type of things would make certain players hate him, and what players did not like his coaching style?
Well, I'm very realistic, and people say, I used to do a lot of seminars for dentists. I used to tour and speak to dentists all over the country through this mini dental implant group, like 300 to 500 dentists at a time. And the main guy,
before you go now, did you do commercials for them or anything?
No. We did. My buddy owned one of the largest. He's from Buffalo, one of my best friends. And what I would do is I would speak to the dentist. He would pay me to do that, fly me to Palm Springs, or a lot of times in Buffalo. They're huge. They're one of the top mini dental implant businesses. So because of that, he brought me in. I would speak, and then after the dental practices would buy our program. We would have a program. And I always said the same thing. My friend got mad at me. He goes, that sounds kind of negative. But I would say, listen, I always learned, I knew my role. My dream was to play one game in the NHL. My father was a stickler on school. I went back to school. It took me 10 years to get my degree. I went back and got a bachelor's degree in small business management. But my mother and father said, listen, it's great to have that dream, but you might play 1 year, or you might play, I don't know, you play 10, or we don't know. So you always have to have a backup. And that's like Glenn Healy would say, you might have a cup of coffee or you might have a pot of coffee. So I was kind of that guy, I made it. I didn't get drafted at my draft year, really bad year. I got drafted at 19. I made the team. So for me, just to put on a New York Ranger jersey was a privilege. So if Mike Keenan was there, John Tortorella, whoever the coach was, I just have to do my job. And if I play one shift, I'm going to get everything I have. If I play a lot, great. So I had to keep that attitude. Yes, as an athlete, I always want to play, but I knew I was a bubble player. So to answer this long-winded question, playing for Mike Keenan was very tough if you're a bubble player. Myself, Eddie Olchuk, Nick Kiprios, Doug Litster, man was Glenn Healy. It was tough because he was on you and you can't even look comfortable. He never wanted you comfortable. Now, if you were Messier, Graves, it's not bad. So, but I like him to this day. And I've talked to him a lot. We spent a lot of time together the last 3 years talking just about life. And I really like him. And in fact, I did a podcast with him. We talk about Glenn Healy, and I thanked him for keeping. I even thanked him at our 25th, and he gave me a hug. I said, he traded guys he didn't want around. He could have easily got rid of me to Edmonton. I was told they wanted me at the end of the year, but he kept me around, and I thank him for that. And then I did it on a Zoom call. We had a lot of Ranger people, and Glenn Healy said, you could be Trump's press secretary. Quit kissing Keenan's ass. You're not going to play any more now than you did then. Joking around. But the thing is that I really liked him because he would get the best out of us. But he was tough. It's tough. Like, it wasn't easy. Like, if he did what he did in corporate America, that would be, can you imagine back then?
Well, back then he maybe could have got away with it. Not today, though.
No, but I like him. I enjoy spending time with him. And listen, I was fortunate enough to plan an all-star team with no salary cap with 25 guys and great players in the minors. There could have been 30, 40 guys that could have taken my job easily. He could have brought somebody in from the Blackhawks at the end of the year. They didn't make the playoffs that year, brought more guys in, but he kept me. So how can I complain about, I played 30 some odd games on a great team. No, I look back on it and sometimes I have to pinch myself, and I played with guys I looked up to. I'm not that athlete that like plays the role. Oh, wow. But I was a guy that just loved to play, and I wanted to play as long as I could. That was the goal.
I want to go back to that dental thing. I mean, if you were doing commercials for them, you could have said something like, hey, I've been knocking people's teeth out for years. They just show you throwing a punch. Go to Joe Blow dental replacement. This is the place to go. Something like that. I think it would have been perfect.
Well, you talk about, and again, Grump,
you're just going to gloss over my joke. You're just going to gloss right over my joke like it didn't even happen.
I did. Look at that. Look at that smooth transition right out of that, Grumpy. I just acknowledge. I didn't even acknowledge it. Well, I wanted to ask, I mean, you had been on championship teams, Stanley Cup winning teams. And again, you help there at the moment here, and you help with, getting clients there in order to get focused there and to be successful in their practice. When you were, when you were in the NHL, when you were on the Stanley Cup championship winning teams, when you were a professional athlete, what did you notice were those items that helped you put the team over the top, and that was the impetus to winning Stanley Cups, to being at the top of the level, to winning the Stanley Cup championship?
That's a great question, because what I thought, I played with Mark Napier and Clark Gillies and you're around him, but when I played for the Rangers, I really knew what it took, because if you watch how a guy like Mark Messier carries himself, and I used this on my show once, usually if you look at Facebook, right, people love to promote themselves. They love to brag. They love to tell everybody how great they're doing. Everybody looks like they have the perfect life. And I used to say that, most people on Facebook, I know a couple people, but I would never say their names, would say something like, hey, everybody, here I am. And, look at me, where Mark Messier would say, hey, everybody. Hey, Mike, there you are. What can I do for you to make your life easier? We had a guy named Darren Langdon. He came up from the minors after we won the cup, and the kid showed up in a $40 suit in Montreal that night. The next morning, Mark got on a call, called up this person to come down at practice, take his measurements, and Mark bought him 3 suits, new pair of shoes, a shirt. He says, welcome to your day in the NHL. Whether he was going to be up for a week or a month, he wanted him to look professional. Kevin Lowe, we did a thing, and it's kind of embarrassing how it worked out for me, but I went on this, they did the top 10 list. The year we won, I regretted I could have taken batting practice with the Yankees, or you sign up on the board what you want to do, and I ended up doing this David Letterman thing. Well, I was too late, and Kevin Lowe signed up. I go, darn it, man, I'm behind. And he said, you know what? You go, Hardy. So he's an older guy. He goes, I go, no. He goes, you go. And all of these guys did a lot. And probably the best thing is that, I'm really what I'm trying to share with you. They're really good people. My name wasn't going to be on the cup. I almost lost my eye. I missed a bunch of games. Had a slap shot in my face. It was a terrible time. You had to play 40 games to have your name on the Stanley Cup. Eddie Olchuk got hurt. He broke his thumb. We sat out a lot. And the guys fought to get our name on the cup. And it worked. Mark Messier, Kevin Lowe, Adam Graves, a bunch of players did that. Mike Gartner, who wasn't even on our team, he was part of the Players Association, got traded from us. He said, listen, they were there all year. They were on the roster, even our general manager, Neil Smith, and they did that. So I've been around really good people. Forget the hockey part. They're really good people. And that's what I miss. And compared to the business world, being around good people. And that's the best way I could explain it. They would do anything for you ahead of themselves. So like I played for the Buffalo Sabres and I needed 70 games for a one-way contract. Mark Napier, they told me there's no way I'm playing. It came from the owners, which I know the owners today, they're great. I talked to them and I wasn't going to play. There was no way. Ted Sater said, you can't play tonight. You're going to be playing in the playoffs. You'll be playing a lot. I fought a lot that year, had all those penalty minutes. My 69th game, the game didn't mean anything. In the 70th, Mark Napier wasn't going to dress in the playoffs. And 4 guys went into the office, Mike Foligno, Clark Gillies, Larry Playfair, and Mark Napier says he's got to play. So Dave Anderchuk, a bunch of guys went in there and said he should play. I mean, he fought for the team. They said he came from the top. He's not playing. And Mark Napier faked an injury, and I had to play that night.
So what they did is they almost did like a proverbial Rudy. They laid down their jersey and said, Mike Hartman has to play.
Well, I wasn't quite like they went in there and I go, oh, no, and I'm getting nervous. I was just happy to be up all year. It was a good year. And Mark Napier winked at me, and it's in my book on my website. And he said,
what's the name of the book?
Well, it's if you go to my website, it's called, it's changed the name. It's called 100 Ways to Become Your Personal Best. But if you go to, should be on my website. If you go to if you look in the About Us and click on it, the story's there. But Mark Napier faked an injury for me. And I go like, who does that? So the funny part of the story was I was like 21 years old, and the guy said, what are you going to do for him? And he loves wine. Like he has a big wine cellar in his place in Toronto. So I went to the store and I bought him wine. And I came back and they go, it's a $10 bottle of wine. I didn't know then. I was a young kid. And I bought him like a $20 bottle of wine. They go, Hardy, you got to get him a better. You just got your one-way contract, which back then they can never send you back down. But to make the long story short of it, just good people that I don't think I've ever met in the real world.
I'm going to, you know what? And I'm going to say of all the sports, hockey players, I don't even think it's close compared to athletes in other sports, are more like that. They're more like regular people. And I don't know why the reason is, but maybe it's because of the dedication to the craft that you need to have. And it's a total team effort, every single shift out there. Where football, you have your offense unit, defense unit. They don't interact a whole lot. But hockey, I mean, to me, it's just a total team game all the time. And that's why I just love hockey and hockey players. Even you, Mike, I got to say, I still like you. So
now, our mutual friend said you were involved. You did some of the Panthers a little bit, right? Or yes, or
yes. I was a head statistician for the Panthers back in the day.
So I'm not a football fan that much. I mean, I'm the only probably guy I don't watch football on Sundays much. You'll see me going for a jog at the Greenway, but I watched the guy Cam Newton here, and I told my girlfriend, I said I can't. And I watched the coach that was here then, and they were going to go to they were going to the finals. And I was in New York, actually. I did something with the Rangers, and they played the Giants or the Jets because it was on TV, and they won. And they were being funny at the sidelines, and the ball bounced out of bounds, and Cam Newton grabbed it with one hand and was running as a joke. And I said, I can't see them winning a championship because Mark Messier never, and maybe it's the wrong sport. Maybe I'm 100% wrong. I'm not educated in football. I watched that, and who am I to say anything bad about Cam Newton? That's not where I'm going. But I watched Mark Messier, and if you look in his eyes, and every time he was prepared and professional, where it wasn't about me, like Superman. It was about everybody else. And the best story in the world now that people are going to say, damn it, these boring Ranger stories. There was a guy, and he we practiced at Rye Playland in New York was our practice rink.
Yep.
And I think this old guy was outside there for a lot of years saying, hey, Mark, I love watching you. Every day he's there. And one day Mark says, what do you do? He goes, well, I'm retired. He goes, come on in. You got a job with the Rangers. And Mark took care of it. And he passed out towels. His name was Benny. And he passed out towels to everybody. And however he was there, whatever Mess says, he was taken care of. I don't know exactly the full backstory behind it. So then he didn't go to the game at the Gardens, but every day he was there. He'd give the guys towels. He was maybe 80 years old, 85 years old. The next, he was great. Hey, I don't want to bother you. Come on, your family. Well, the next year, there's only so many rings that Belfour makes, and they crack the seal. Well, the next year was 95, and we're in the dressing room. It was just after the lockout. It was a terrible year for a lot of us, including myself. I ended up being done after that. But we're in the room, and Mark Messier says, shut the radio off, stereo off. Everybody come around. He goes, hey, Benny Patrizi, where are you? Come on over here. He goes, oh, no, what did I do? I go, no, relax. He goes, come over here. And he gave him this box with his name on a Stanley Cup ring that Mess did. I don't know how he did it. He gave him this box. He said, thanks. You're a big part of our team. It takes all of us to win. And they made sure he got a Stanley Cup ring. Now, where do you see that? And the guy was crying. He didn't know what to do. And Mark met this guy outside maybe 3 or 4 years earlier and brought him in and said, you're part of us. Mess took a liking to him. And he made sure he had a Stanley Cup ring. They must have measured him somehow or got him to do that. But and stuff like that is what it takes. Eddie Olchuk was our Players Player Award, and he didn't play. He played half a game in the play. I played 2 shifts in the playoffs, and he sat out with me. And he was named Players Player Award for his positivity every day in Mess, and everybody voted for him because he brought this positive energy. And a 40-goal scorer sitting out, Mike didn't like him as a player to play every night. And his job was to be a support player. And the guys voted for him. So I can't say enough about good people. And I'll stick to that forever. That's my biggest thing.
I had never heard that story about Mark Messier. I always heard he was a leader, but hearing stories like that, and I know that the people who listen to this podcast appreciate that. I'm just going to tell you right now. Wow. These are the type, and that's why I so wanted you on this podcast, just for stories like that, because we don't hear that every day. My big story is, I do the laundry for my wife every once in a while. Nothing really big, but I mean, that's just a fantastic story. It really is. And really, I do think, you mentioned Cam Newton. I feel now, CTJ, Mike Hartman brought up NFL and Cam Newton. Now, you see a certain player in the NFL, Tom Brady, who's able to turn around a loser franchise like Tampa Bay just with his presence. And, you hear stories like that about Tom Brady. It's not a mistake that players like that win. And I know that Ranger team had a lot of Edmonton players on it. And I think that was also kind of conducive, bringing that winning atmosphere to the Rangers, who hadn't won the Cup since 1940 as well.
Right. It's funny. I have a Brady book here, and I did watch Super Bowl, and I remember people were saying, why are you so happy for him? I said, because he's a winner. What does he say right away? I want to win another one next year. I go, how much more money? I mean, he's healthy at his age. He just wants to play. I mean, and just watching that type of, I don't care what sport it is, like a Derek Jeter, he was such a good guy and took all these extra ground balls and was a real team guy. And then I look at that, and then sometimes that I've learned, because I was educated, playing for the Rangers, being around a Clark Gillies and being around a guy like that, watch how they carried themselves, watch how those guys did it. It was like an education in itself. And when they sometimes bring guys in and I watch them on the sidelines or I watch basketball, it's like, wow, like you could just see the difference between a Brady, and he's intense. He had that intensity going to the last 1 second left in the game when they already won. They were going to win it. There was like 2 seconds on the clock. It didn't matter. That's what I like in an athlete. To me, that's an athlete.
Yes.
And I want to start asking some questions too.
Yeah,
we got some comments in the Jerry Bennett, Jerry Springer, former mayor of Cincinnati, says, "Hey, question from Mike Hartman. How many guys that you've played with in the NHL from your time are broke now, and if so, why?"
Well, it's sad. I could think of guys that are really broke, and this is the saddest story. Murphy, that played for the first overall pick. You know, Jimmy Carson was he and Joe Murphy were the first 2 picks. Joe Murphy, if you go look him up on YouTube right now. He's living under a bridge in Muskoka, Canada.
Not now, people. Don't go look up Joe Murphy now on YouTube.
No, not now. Don't look him up now. You're going to ruin the show.
I'll make sure.
So what happens is, it's sad because, and was a multi-millionaire, won a Stanley Cup with Edmonton. And now, he's desolate, he doesn't have anything. What I learned is sometimes, the hardest thing to do in life, and it's not literally, but if you have a Mercedes and it's taken away, you have an identity crisis. I remember when we were going through the banking problems here in Charlotte, and I was around all these people from Bank of America, and there's Joe.
Yeah.
And that's sad. So I'm around, it's the same in life, and these people at Bank of America were positive. They had great energy. And then all of a sudden they were going to move Bank of America, they were laying off 50,000 people all over the country. And that's Bank of America's hub is here. You would thought, what do you do next? And that's what happened to a lot of guys. The average hockey career is 3 years. For a lot, could be 3 to 5 years. Some guys play 17 years, and you have to be smart. But when I see Joe Murphy, when I looked at him when he played for the Edmonton Oilers, if you could put up a picture of him back in the day when he played, he was this good-looking kid, first overall pick, and it's sad. In fact, Glenn Healy and a bunch of guys were trying to help him, but he doesn't want help. And it's sad. And then you see other guys, true, they make money, and a lot of it was in bonuses back then, by the way. A lot of guys you see the salaries, a lot was in bonuses, and they spend the money and they don't have a lot left. And it's called false income. When you have money in the bank and you keep pulling out of the bank, pretty soon it goes away and you're trying to live the same lifestyle. My father was an accountant by trade, and he had his own business, but we grew up with nothing in Detroit up to a point where my dad built up one of the largest wallpaper companies. And I remember I was driving home from Buffalo after my first year in the playoffs. And the year before, he says, buy a car, but don't buy a fancy car. Never buy a home where you're going to play hockey, because you're not going to be there long unless you think that's going to be your house. So I bought a $120,000 house in Detroit, paid it off, and I had a car. It was a Jimmy GMC. He goes, you're a Detroit guy. You don't need to buy a fancy European car. So I go to my dad's office on the way home. I just played in the NHL, big shot, 21 years old. And I stopped by the dealership because the tire was rattling in the back of the Jimmy. So he convinced me, the guy, to make a long story short, the salesman said, why don't you upgrade? It's only like $5,000. I said, done deal. I upgraded. I show up at my dad's office in Detroit, and he was just building his business. And he said to me, wait a sec. There's a sticker on your car, because he looked out the window when he came out. There's a sticker on your window. What's that? And wait a sec. Didn't you have a red GMC? I go, yeah, Dad, but I just upgraded for $5,000. He took me by my ear and he pulled me to each car. He goes, this lady works for me. She has 3 kids, and she has to put tape, you could do that in Detroit, on her bumper to get her kids to school. This lady can't pay her bills and can't eat. And, she's doing everything she can to get to work so she could just drive to work. Oh, there's a car not in this lot because this one's in the shop. And Big Shot's got to go to buy a brand new car. It's only $5,000. Well, that $5,000's a lot of money. He goes, I'm really disappointed in you. I go, well, Dad, I play in the NHL. He goes, I don't give a rat's ass. He said so he taught me at a young age, you try to save everything you can, and then you go for plan B because it's not going to last long. It's very short-lived. So that's I try to learn it at a young age. We all make dumb mistakes. We go through different things. But to answer your question, I think a lot of us sometimes have this identity crisis when you're done and you're used to getting attention. You're used to getting things taken care of, and you wake up and they don't care anymore. It's the next group that comes in.
I just want to tell you, Mike, your dad raised you right. That's all I'm going to say is your dad raised you right.
Yeah, you would like him. He reminds me. You guys are a lot alike. He was.
Hey, tough love, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he's just your friend. His job is to be your dad first. So, and I think a lot of people forget that. So,
right. No, that's true. You got to keep it real, right?
That's right.
Absolutely. And also a comment here from Scott L saying, hey, Mike, who really ran the Rangers back in 1994? Was it Messier or Keenan?
Well, Keenan was our boss. I mean, but, Mess, he could just, go into the office and say, hey, maybe we should do X, Y, and Z. Mess didn't step on Mike Keenan's toes. It wasn't like they didn't battle. Mess showed up, did his job every day. He was quiet, but when he said something, it mattered. And, we love stories, and I'm not trying to talk about myself, but I remember I played a great game on the island and sat out in my hometown in Detroit and played in Toronto. Well, a couple weeks later, we were in Florida, and I told you earlier, most of my family's there. And we were playing the Panthers, and I told Mess he was taking everybody out for dinner after the game to this big steakhouse. I said, Mess, the one time I'm going to be with my family. He goes, hey, go have a good time. He goes, your mother's here? I go, yeah. He goes, hold on. He went into Keenan's office, and he said, he's playing tonight. He's got to play. He's been playing well for us. They sat somebody else out, and they played. I scored that night, actually. It's somewhere, and someone put it up on YouTube because someone sent that to me. And because of Mess, it was because, and I wasn't going to play. And I told my mother, listen, come on down for sure. I got them tickets, and family got tickets early on. I had like 20 people there. My brother's there, my sister, my cousins, and uncles. And Mess did it for me. And I even brought this up at our 25th anniversary, where we had a really nice night. And I brought up about what I could remember about the 94 year. And it's something like that you'll never forget. Mark Messier, he's got other things to worry about. Make sure he goes into Keenan's office and says, listen, his family's here. He's been playing great. You got to put him on, so, and it's funny how things happen, but that's the kind of person he was. So Mess had a lot to say, but he didn't overstep his boundaries.
And you know what? You don't get a league award named after you unless you're doing something right. That's all I have to say.
Well, that's Tampa, but that's a.
Oh, goodness gracious. I'm sorry. I thought this is.
Good job, TJ. Nice way to screw it up.
Grump. What can I say?
No, but so that's,
You can still run that again. It's not like he's got 100 of those goal scoring videos up. I'm just telling you.
God almighty, Grump.
It's funny. The internet, you can't lie anymore. I told my kids I'd go end to end, put it through a couple legs, upper, bury it top shelf, and they can't find that video on the internet. I can't.
Hey, what can I tell you? They didn't archive that material back then. What can you say?
Yeah.
Oh,
so. It's so great to see. You're so, TJ's quiet. Is he always quiet, or is it because I'm talking a lot?
No. I want to make sure. Hey, you're here, Mike. And again, it's one of those time periods where I love hearing the stories. And again, you might say I'm quiet this podcast, but I like just hearing the stories that you've got. I mean, you don't get often, the insight that you're offering, and kind of like those inside sources. I'm honestly kind of shocked that, you're telling me here that how much the players have an impact and a say on the structure and on, who plays some nights, and kind of like, that human element factor that you don't really account too much when you're a fan sitting in the stands, or when you're just kind of at home watching the game. You don't really account for that all that often. Again, it kind of brings that insight in.
Yeah. it doesn't happen a lot on other teams, but Mark Messier is a special person. People really don't know him. Someone said, "Is he arrogant?" I said, "Absolutely not. He's shy and quiet." And now he does a little, you don't see him at the Garden a lot. He does a little, philanthropic work by donating and doing different things but he doesn't talk about it. These are things you don't know. Like, he'll go out of your way, like he did for my daughter. And I did this Christopher Reeves event, and he made an effort to come all the way across because he knew my daughter lived in New York. He says, "Hey, is this your daughter?" I go, "Yeah, you knew her when she was young." He goes, "Hey, Gabrielle, how are you?" He talked to her for a while. "What do you do?"
Okay, looks like Max have a little bit of technical difficulties right now. It's okay. I can finish that story.
And he's really interested. Yeah. So he's interested in everybody. He's always like, even my girlfriend's a registered dietitian. He goes, "Hey, tell me what's going on." And one of my favorite stories is I had a friend here from Charlotte. He's a banker, and we've done a lot of work together. He works in the bonds division of Wells Fargo, and I took him to the Garden for his 50th birthday, and we went and saw Messier. Well, they talked for 20 minutes about training and how Messier's training for the marathon. He didn't know my friend. All he does is goes out of his way for people. And he remembered my friend's name and shook his hand and said, "Happy birthday. Anything I could do for you?" And my friend said, "No, it was good enough just to talk to you." He goes, "Hey, great talking to you." They were talking about bonds, and that's what that's the stuff that you don't really see. You don't see that.
I was scouring the internet. I was trying to find the goal that you had scored.
The end-to-end one? The end-to-end one? That was in midgets.
The one when I was bouncing on my stick and I carried it and I put it under the crossbar.
Yeah, I was
remember that one?
That one. I was trying to find the goal you had scored for the Rangers against Detroit, and I couldn't. It
was against. It wasn't Detroit. It was Florida.
Florida. I'm sorry. Okay. Well,
the one where he scooped the puck up, and that's one night he was playing, but he lost his jersey in a fire, so he had to put on that Brendan Morrison jersey, and that's how he scored that goal.
Oh man!
Now here's the thing, TJ. Okay, TJ, did you have another boring question for Mike?
Go ahead, Eddie. Go ahead, shoot away, guys. We're good.
No. It's another boring question. Jerry also says there opinions on Sean Avery and his character, and who was the best NHL goaltender you played against in your day.
Ooh. The first one, he was a Ranger, so I'm not going to. I don't ever believe, he's got a show, and I'm just going to say I don't ever, we don't ever talk bad about our former alumni, but I'm personally not one that believes in bad language and acting a certain way. But that's Sean. He does things different. He's not a bad guy. He's smart, but he does things differently. And so I can't get too deep into that one. But the best goaltender, a lot of them were so good, but Patrick Waugh back in the day was tough. But I think Montreal's defense was so good that you didn't get a lot of quality chances on them. But he was just, all those goalies were great. You got to remember there was 40 goalies back in those days when there was 21 teams. 42 goalies out there. So it's and they were all great.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. Mike's not a goal scorer, okay? So I think maybe the best question for him should have been, who was the easiest goalie? I mean, he's only scored 34 goals in the NHL, which is like 38 more than I scored. But still, I just, maybe the best question would be, who was the easiest one to score him? Because they all look tough when you only scored 34 goals.
No, it was all tough. But if you're a statistician, right? So if I took the top Islander player and I put him on the fourth line and never played the power play and played in certain roles, would he still score 40 goals?
For the Islanders, absolutely not.
Anywhere. Right. So no, but that's true.
So hold on now. So you're saying the reason why you didn't score more goals is because they were playing you on the fourth line? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm pretty realistic. No, but I did know that when I played, especially with Buffalo, see, the reason I scored those goals in Buffalo, I did score a lot on the fourth line, but what I shouldn't be telling you is they put me with Andrei Chuck and Turgeon, McGillney and Turgeon. So they would rotate me in, and I scored a lot of goals playing with some really good players. So if you went back to my Buffalo days, people would watch and said, "Oh my gosh, he played with." I had 3 assists one night in Detroit, and Montemero put that up there. But the funny thing was, I go, "Oh yeah, I played with Turgeon and McGillney. That was my line." But no, I would play on my line, and then they would put me in spot duty. So I play the 4th line, and they say, "Okay, Hardy, come up here, take a shift with Andrew Chuck and Foligno." I said, and then I scored a lot with, playing with Dale Howard Chuck some shifts. So when you play with those guys, it's special. Nothing against the 4th line guys, but I wasn't going to tell anybody. I think you're the first person I ever probably told that to.
But there you go. See, that's what we're here. We want you to open up, okay? And like I said, Mike is part of the High Tide Lifts All Boats crew, and I love it. Oh, now let me – I'm looking at the picture of this guy over here. I bet you if that picture was a little bit realistic, a little bit higher up, he's got no hair. I'm going to guarantee – just looking at it right now, I bet you that guy is full-on bald.
Can I answer that?
Yes. Yeah, Mike M is saying, who was the toughest guy you fought?
The toughest guy I can never win an argument with, no matter what, is this guy. He lived in Long Island. He ended up moving to somewhere in the Carolinas, and he started going door to door. I heard the story with paint. And he says, I could pinstripe these vehicles. And they heard that New York accent. They wanted to send him back to South Carolina where. So, and I could never win an argument with this guy. His name was Mike. Is that Mike?
Yeah, I heard he was from Buffalo. He wasn't smart enough to live on Long Island.
No, Mike's a great guy. Mike's a good guy.
Mike Montemero is a mutual friend of both Mike and I. So.
Yeah, he's an athletic supporter.
Literally.
So the toughest guy, you like the story. So we were playing against I always played this guy, Jay Miller, who scared me sometimes. I'm not going to lie. I'm 21 years old. This guy's a man. He's about 6'3". He's about this wide. And I used to play Jay a lot in Boston. And then there was Marty McSorley, who was a tough guy, and Probert. I mean, a bunch of heavyweight. I was a middleweight. And I was in LA one night, and we were playing the Kings that day. In the morning skate, I walked by, and there's Jay Miller and Marty McSorley. And I said, hey, guys. And Marty said hi to me because Marty was a former Belleville Bull. And Jay Miller says, go F yourself. I said, okay. So then I keep walking away. He goes, Mike, down the hallway of this big stadium. I'm in the, underneath, He goes, Mike, are you going to fight like a man tonight, or are you going to hold on?
Oh, my goodness. Do we have the fight here?
I don't know if this is.
Might be one. I fought him 10 times. I mean,
I was about to say, this is just round one, so I have to assume there are multiple.
The funny thing is that I said, I'm going to hold on. He goes, that's what I thought. But, this guy was one of the toughest guys in the league. You could take a brick and smash him in the face. And here I was a rookie actually fighting him, here. And he says, are you ready? Like, there he goes. Now, what am I going to do you got to fight him in close.
It looks like he's getting a lot of shots in.
Oh, I'm trying to protect myself.
Exactly.
I'm not doing a good enough job right there. I'm sorry.
If I'm not getting hit, I'm okay.
I was about to say, he's hitting his helmet, Grump. I don't know. I mean, hey, the helmet's going to hurt.
I'm going to tell you, his right hand is better now than it was back then. It was a little over the top. So,
yeah, I'm not
great.
Yeah, I try to protect myself.
Oh, okay. Looks like he was getting ready to throw a punch in TJ, and you cut it short. Let me tell you something, Mike. That's something. That's something TJ
got a full of a fight where he just mauled somebody, Grumpy.
No. That's not something TJ does. As soon as one of the guests or me looks good, cut that right off. You're not going to see that.
We will make sure, Grumpy, if that's the case. I wanted to make sure we can pull up a fight where he was just where Mike was pummeling somebody over there. That's what I wanted to pull up, Grumpy. But yeah, I'll go ahead and show the rest there because you've got.
I don't have the video of when he gave Montemero a beating at the ice hockey rink. I don't have that.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Here's a Mike Montemero story. People are going, who's Mike Montemero? But Mike, my kids did not like hockey or skating. my son liked lacrosse, my daughter liked theater, and Mike's, Mike Jr., little Michael skating around the rink fast. He's a good hockey player, young kid. And we went to the ice rink to take, I can't even exaggerate this because you could ask Mike. So we go to the rink, and I'm taking my son out, and I'm making him wear elbow pads and helmets. Back then, I was one of those dads that said, you're not going on the ice without a helmet. My son was like 5 or 6 years old, and he's holding the wall, and he's skating around, and there's this dad flying around the rink with his son, and Mike knew him. And then this kid's skating pretty good, and I'm helping him, and the guy comes up to me because I had my skates really untied, loose. I didn't want to skate. I just wanted to. Mike wanted me. I didn't want to go. I don't want to hurt Mike's feelings. I didn't want to go to the damn rink, but I went, and my kids didn't like it. They wanted to eat candy at the snack bar. So they're holding on the boards, and this guy comes up to me, and he says, hey, he said something like, oh, I could help your son. I said, no, it's fine. He goes, I could help your son and watch my son. And I go, no, it's okay. He goes, I was on the 94 roster with the Rangers. I go,
oh God, I know who you're talking about now.
I'm not going to say his name.
No,
and that's a funny story that we joke. I go, no, it's okay. And I said, man, I heard it all here. Like, people in the South, like, come on. I knew every guy that ever was even in the minors. And some guy tells me he was on the roster, but Mike and I laugh at that story. But that's our funny story from here.
I know that story.
Yeah.
I got a few more now. Tell me now. We got a few more questions, and again, we want to make sure we're respectful of your time, Mike. And
again, I got 15 minutes or so. It's fine.
Yeah, we always appreciate you coming on. So I got 2 questions here. Well, this is more of a statement. Now is this true? Jerry B is saying there, hey, I'm looking up there. I'm seeing your Wikipedia that you're the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. That's awesome. Did you experience any type of anti-Semitism there from teammates, opposing teams, on or off the ice, etc.?
I never had it in the NHL, and but I did play in the minors. You could look it up. And I was playing at the end of, I should have probably quit hockey earlier. My father said, now it's time to give it up and get on with your life. But I ended up sticking around, thought maybe I wanted to coach. And I was playing for the Orlando Solar Bears. We ended up going to the finals that year and lost to the Islanders farm team. They were Utah back then. And Utah beat us out. I mean, they had a lot of the players that you would see on their roster later. Butch Goring was a coach. I think.
Just to interrupt you real quick on that story, all those guys who were playing for the Utah Grizzlies back then are now playing for the Islanders team now. They're all in their 50s.
That was good. So I don't know where I'm even going.
I'm sorry. I should not interrupt you.
So what happened was I was playing against, I think, Cincinnati, and I was on the ice, and we had this guy named Mark Buffet who was a good friend of mine too, and he was with the Olympic team, and he was with San Jose, played some games, but really talented player, 5'10", 170. And this Mark LaForge took his hand and punched him right in the head. So we had Kurt Frazier as a coach who might have been an Islander. He may have been a New York Islander at one time. I'm not sure. Tough guy with the Blackhawks, but he was our coach, and I like Kurt. And I said, me, big tough guy then, which was stupid. I didn't want to fight anyways. And I said, Kurt, put me on the ice. I'm going to go after LaForge. He says, okay. So he puts me on after a few shifts. LaForge got a 2-minute penalty, punched his head. And LaForge is not looking one way. And I came from behind the net and ran him hard, like a cheap shot almost. And I hit him hard. LaForge drops his gloves. And he was a tough guy. If you look up, Mark LaForge had like 400 minutes a year. So we're fighting, and it ends up being nothing. And he ends up kicking me with his skate in the rib. And I end up taking my hand, and I smash him in the face, and I try to knee him bad. And it's not like that's the only time it ever happened. So the guy's saying, where's the anti-Semitic remark? Well, I go to in the dressing room, and I go, okay, I'm in the room, and it was Sunshine Network. Remember, I tell you, I'm being redundant here, but my family lived in Florida, so I'm now walking into the dressing room, and there comes Mark LaForge. And you're not so tough when you're on the ice. You got referees to break it up, but when you're off the ice and the 6'4" guy's coming, it's like, oh shit. So what I did was he comes down, and he's coming to the dressing room, and I held the door, and there's no security. We're not in Madison Square Garden, and we're not in Madison Square Garden. So he holds the door. It was 1995. If you could probably look at the year, it was the lockout. It was the year after the lockout. He was playing, I don't remember, you could say Indianapolis maybe or somewhere. So I'm in the room, and he opens the door, and he's going, "You effing Jew," right on TV. So that's why "You effing Jew. Nobody likes you. We're going to get you effing this and that." And my family's watching him on Sunshine Network, which barely showed any IHL games. My mother, everybody's at home watching him say this. Well, he ends up, if you look up Orlando, he's in the paper. It's an article, so I'm not saying anything about. But the thing about Mark was the league put us on the phone together, and I got suspended for 3 games, and he got suspended for the year. And he called with the president of the IHL on the phone to apologize to me. He goes, "Mike," and Mark's a smart guy. I heard guys knew him. You could play Jeopardy with him. He'll answer every question. And there we go. You guys are good, man. Holy cow. You guys are really good.
I'm directing TJ on how to do all that.
Yeah. So he calls me and says, "Mike, I am extremely sorry. I'm not calling to be reinstated. I am quitting this game. I'm done. I hate this game. I want nothing to do with it. But what I said was stupid, foolish, immature. I'd love to have dinner with you sometimes." And again, and then the president said, "We're going to cut your suspension." He goes, "Don't. I don't care about the suspension. I'm calling just to apologize because it was terribly wrong." So yeah, I like Mark. It was done. I don't know what it even says in the paper if he called to apologize. And the reason it was in the paper and everywhere, because it was on Florida TV, where you have, I'm allowed to say this, you had like Jewish families in Boca Raton and West Palm Beach and all over Florida, and it didn't look really good when they're trying to show what hockey is like, and you're showing back in the days this guy coming in saying nobody likes your race. But he ends up being a good guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah, it's tough to support the minor league product when it's, and it's a heavy Jewish population down in South Florida, without a doubt. The snowbirds moving down, right? And yeah, I can understand totally. But
I like you guys so much. I'm going to share this with you. So, because I'm not very religious. I didn't grow up like that. Just to not get into that part of it, I didn't. So I got to the Rangers, and number 20 was available. Jan Eriksson was there, and he was gone. And number 20, I always wore 20, played for the Jets, the Sabres, except the Lightning. And I said, they asked me, I got there, and they asked this kid McIntyre, who got traded from Vancouver, what number would you like? They didn't ask me. And I'm going, that's weird. And they gave me number 18. So I'm wearing number 18. And I said, can I please wear 20? And the PR guy goes, no, he's actually ended up being the president of the Rangers later on. His name is Barry. So he said Barry would come in and say, no, you have to wear number 18. I said, well, I don't want to wear number 8. I said, can I wear 27? That's available. He goes, no, you have to wear number 18. So then later that year, he said, there's a lot of Jewish fans here, and that means good luck. That means chai and good luck. And I said, oh, I knew that.
Yeah, right.
But it backfired. You got to be careful what you do in life. If there's anything we could teach TJ, because he's young, handsome guy, but if there's anything we could learn is you got to be careful what you do. So I was interviewed, I just got traded to the Rangers, and the same guy, Barry, says, this guy, Mike Rubin, wants to interview you from the Village Voice. I said, what the hell's the Village Voice? No, it's a magazine. It's one of those, they go a little deeper into stuff, but he wants to interview you. He said he may have met you. I said, okay, send him in. Well, it's a kid that I grew up with since 6th grade. He's a writer. So he he's a kid that, really nice kid, really nice Jewish kid. But I went to school with him. I used to trade him his food all the time at lunch. And I used to always, his mother packed him a great lunch, would always say, here, give me this. And I'd take a bite of his Twinkie and put it back. Well, he put that in this Village Voice thing that Mike used to steal my lunch. The way the article came out, it's like I was a bully, but Mike, he kind of fabricated tough guy now. And I had, one little fight in school when I was a kid, but now here I was, this guy, Mike Rubin. There's 10,000, probably 20,000 Rubins in New York. You probably know some. And next thing you know, this guy's telling people that Mike used to go in and steal my lunch. Like I was nowadays the bullying, but he said, I meant to bring some humor to it. We're friends now. And now you're playing for the Rangers and you would take all the good things my mother would pack. I said,
he's lying. He's lying to you. He carried that grudge. He waited and he drove it home right at the end. Yeah, he stole my lunch. He beat me up off the bus stop. That's what he was. He's a bully. He's a goon in the league now. He was a goon when he was a kid. That's exactly what he's saying. He's lying.
That's right. So I always tell my kids, be careful what you say. You don't say bad things about anybody, right? And you be careful what you do in business because you never know who knows somebody.
Very true. Very, very true. That is so true. So true.
DJ, we're not here to give you lessons. You're a little bit younger.
Oh, no. I try to take every little bit. Every interaction, there's always something to learn from for certain. Again, I also want
every interaction is something I can take something from.
Oh,
Grumpy. Can you ride that fence a little bit more?
Hey, Grumpy, I'm to show that I'm fair and honest here on this, I'm not going to lose all the comments that speak positively of our guest, Grumpy Old Man. It's only the comments that speak positively of you. I just want to go ahead. Jeremy Ford there saying, wow, that's a cool story. Also, Ring Story. What a film, saying, hey, guys, great guest. Love your stories, Mike, also. Just to make sure we're showing those there to you as well, Mike.
Can we say a great Islander story?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You guys got to have Trevor Gillies on your show.
You're going to hook me up with Trevor Gillies, are you not?
I'm going to hook you up, and you got to put him on your show. And the way I met Trevor was, I got to be careful. We met through a mutual friend, but we talk all the time about. I met him just through through a mutual friend. I think it was Benoit Hoke. Said, you got to talk to this guy. He doesn't live too far from you. He's in a business that I don't want to discuss his personal business. He's trying to make it, and he works his butt off. Like he's in sales, and he's doing great in what he's doing. I don't want to get into his personal stuff, but he's such a good guy. And I mean, this guy made it to the Islanders at 31 years old. Because people told him when he was young, he's never going to make it. He's never going to amount to anything. His brother was a very talented hockey player, never played in the NHL. But Trevor's just a really good guy. Ended up, I think, met his wife in Augusta, played around the East Coast League. And he told his mother when he was young that he's going to play in the NHL. And even when he was older, and he got there the rougher way. But one thing you have to say is you would love him on your show. He was on my show, and he was great, but he's just a really good, down-to-earth guy, and I think he would be great. And he's all Islanders, man. He does the alumni now, and they love him there. The players love him. Yeah, and he always would say, well, Mike, I only played like 40 games. It doesn't matter. I said, if you play one game or guys play 1,000, they respect you. And they do, because I talked to some of the guys there, but he'd be a really good guest for sure. So,
well, here's the thing. Everyone who listens to this podcast, if Trevor Gillies doesn't come on this podcast, it's because Mike Hartman did not do his job by hooking us up. Let's be honest.
Share his contact information. See, you know what I like to do? When you get to our age, TJ, you try to do things quick. And I'm going to share.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. For certain, yeah, we'd love to have him on too.
Who was the best teammate that you ever played with, and the worst, and who was the funniest?
Well,
I'm sure he's not going to answer the worst teammate.
Okay, well, the best teammate I ever played with. God, I can't. Buffalo was really where my heart was for a long time because played a lot there. They drafted me. I love it there. I could probably live there, but it's just worked out that I got to be careful here. No more girls from Buffalo. My wife I was married to for 13 years. Got a good, good with the kids, but she was from Buffalo, and then dated a girl here from Charlotte from Buffalo. It didn't work out. Now my girlfriend's from Tonawanda. So I got to be, Buffalo is a great place. I got to be very careful what I say. But best teammate is Mike Foligno by far. He would make sure we always had a place to go as a young guy for Thanksgiving. And he was just a fabulous person, He was our captain. He'd go out of your way for you. I played with over, I don't know, guessing 400 guys. And there's only one guy I didn't like. And I would never say his name, but the story is Mike Foligno's story. He played for Buffalo. We got to be careful because we're limiting the Europe. We had a lot of guys from Minnesota with Americans, but we had this guy, and we are playing again in Toronto. And usually there's thousands of fans there, and this fan was by the bus, about 8 years old. And I'm the first one on the bus, and I sign these autographs. I get on, and then this other player just gets right on the bus. And this people were not, I could see outside the window, little commotion, they were upset. And then Mike Foligno gets on the bus. And we were getting the bus to go back to the hotel because it was a pregame skate. And Mike said to the player, the little kid was crying outside. And Mike said, "What's going on?" He goes, "Well, this player walked right by me and didn't sign my autograph." And Mike Foligno says, "Hold on." Mike Foligno gets on the bus and he points in his chest and says, "You get out there right now." He was a young guy. "You get out there and you sign every damn autograph. And if you don't, we're going to have a problem. But get out there." And he goes out there like it was like his dad. And he signing the autograph, and he comes back in. He goes, "If I ever see that again," he had a look in his eyes, Mike, "if I ever see that again and you wear a Buffalo Sabre jersey, we will have a serious problem. You don't ever do that." And that same guy is really not the best guy, but I would never say his name. But that's the Mike.
I'm going to do process by elimination to figure out who it is. And
So
I'm going to
they'll do
expose them on the Others Never Say Die podcast.
Oh man. But did you have any, and we always ask ex-NHLers because again, I feel like the time period, again, like, I feel like we don't see as many jokes or practical jokes played on, teammates, coaches, etc. But do you have one story where it's like, "Oh my God, I thought we were all going to get murdered because XYZ did this"? Do you have any funny stories about pranks that were pulled?
I'm almost even afraid to say it because I don't want to bring back old memories. But
Oh, that sounds like the best story to tell.
this guy's my friend. I'm going to throw him under the bus because we had a neutral site game with the Rangers in Halifax, and Halifax, Nova Scotia, which they're known for their fish and lobster. So we were playing the Devils there. The NHL did it one year, 93, 94 year, where you would play a game, a team would play maybe in Charlotte or I don't know, if you're different areas. So we played in Nova Scotia. Well, after the game, Mark Messier comes on to our plane. The Rangers had their own plane with these crates worth of like lobsters and stuff. So he's on the plane and falls asleep. And one of our players decides to take the lobsters out, put it in a different container that was there, that was maybe that they brought on for food or whatever, and put all these National Geographics inside the container. So then we land in New York. It's not too far of a flight. He's walking out with these National Geographics. Keenan gives us the next day off. He gets off the plane and says, "Guys, we have a day off. Tomorrow, no one come to the rink unless you need treatment." How great is that? Well, Messier had his whole family coming for dinner, and he opened the box, and it was National Geographics. Well, 2 days later, So 2 days later, he's at the rink. And he looked at me. He goes, "I don't think you did it." "Who did it?" And I said, He goes, "It doesn't matter." And so in the back of his mind, he thought it was me. It was Nick Kiprios, who's one of my closest friends. I'm going to throw him under the bus. So I always didn't want to, Messier goes out of his way for me, takes care of the guys that are, that sometimes don't need taken care of, but goes out of his way. And Kiprios, it almost, even though I'm guilty by association because I knew about it, And I think he even said, hold the container, like hold the top while he's sleeping. I might have held this thing. So now I'm really guilty by association. And I never wanted Ness to know that I never did it. But I'll throw Kipper under the bus because he did it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Oh man, that's an excellent story to end on, Mike. And again, we appreciate you coming on. We have got your podcast. You have the Mike Hartman Show. We've got that linked in the description below to Apple as well as Spotify.
I can't see it. I can't see it.
I know, Grumpy. And we also have the Mike Hartman Academy as well. We've got that link as well in the description below too, so where you can find that book as well. And again, anything else you want to plug and kind of talk specifically about here before we
I enjoyed you guys. You guys do a great job, and really a great job. I mean, I've listened to a couple of I saw the YouTubes, and Mike Montemero told me that you guys have a show just like, was it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago? And I've listened. You guys do a great job. You got to keep it up. It's entertaining. It's exciting, and I think it's the Islander fans should like it because it goes beyond just the typical stats, and it goes deeper into the game. And you also get the New York version and not the Southern Charm version, because you can't. There's a whole different. You can't do the Southern Charm thing in New York. They'll rip your head off. No. You can't do it, and you have to be direct and real. And sometimes the truth.
The Islanders media cartel so loves everything to look so flowery and orange and blue. And I know Grumpy Old Man and I do not tote that company line also often.
Not me. That's for certain. But I just want to say, not only do we, Mike, do we have the Islanders Never Say Die podcast, which you're on right now. We also have the TJ and the Grumpy Old Man podcast, which is just a general sports thing, just letting everyone know, of course. But I just want to say, Mike, thank you so much for being on. I mean, real salt of the earth. I mean, just a fantastic guy. I'm going to tell you again, your mom and dad raised you right.
Well, thanks.
Thank you. I can't think of a higher compliment, honestly.
Oh, thank you very much. I enjoyed it with you guys. And you're Grumpy, man. You're not too far from me. Let's have a lunch or something.
Anytime. I'm retired now, so I'm like you. I'm doing nothing. Oh, I'm sorry. No, you are doing things. But I'm doing less than nothing.
My girlfriend said, she said, do you work? What do you do? I said, what do you mean, what do I do? Because, she's a dietitian. She's on the phone. She's working with people all day long. And I get up. I work out in the morning. I go have a coffee. I like to go walk on the Greenway. She goes, what time do you really start work? I said, well, in Hoboken, you're up early. You got to take the ferry across. You're busy. Well, here things are slower in Charlotte. It's
a little bit easier. A little bit easy lifestyle. Nothing wrong with that. Right. Yeah, definitely. Hey, we'll definitely do lunch without a doubt. I'll get TJ. We'll get your. I got your number, so I can call you anytime.
Yeah, and we'll get Mike to come.
Yeah, that's right. We need somebody to serve the table. We need somebody to pick up the dishes from the table.
Alligator arms.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
TJ, do you know what alligator arms even means?
Yeah, he doesn't want to pay the check.
I can't get the check. I can't get it. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much again, Mike. And again, we've got all the information there to the podcast and then also the website and the book linked in the description below. But again, thank you so much for taking the time.
I'm going to send Trevor's information right now. Reach out to him because you'll love this guy.
And we're going to name drop too.
Yeah, name drop. They'll tell him, and I said he's going to do the show. He'll do it for sure.
There you go. I was going to say, Mike Hartman said that, you're a jerk and that you have to do the show because he was well enough. He said you couldn't do it as good as him. And that'll definitely get him to do it.
Tell him I said,
oh, look at that.
I always pay.
Yeah.
Look, he's got wait, put his face up there. He's got the perfect face for radio, so you can't have him on here.
Very true. You know what I sent him for Christmas? I sent him something to comb his hair. I sent him a box of washcloths.
You know the greatest part about this? He can't retaliate.
It is the best.
Isn't this great? And we could record it. We could send it to all the car dealerships here in Charlotte if we want.
That's right. Yep, no problem at all. They'll know what he's really about.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, guys.
Thanks a lot, Mike, so much.
Okay. Grumpy Old Man. Look at you doing a great job on guest picking, Grumpy. I enjoyed having Mike on.
Of course, because he was a guest of mine. That's why.
Is that now? Okay, I'll be honest with you. Now that again, we're going to have Trevor Gillies on in the future. You can't go ahead and try to claim that that's one of your guests, one of the grumpy old man's guests by association.
He's part of my guest tree. You understand? You like they have a coaching tree from this guy made this guy made this guy. He's the part of the guest tree.
Oh goodness gracious!
So Mike Hartman to Trevor Gillies.
Look at that, all the way, and it's going to find its way all the way to Dennis Potvin. Now Jerry B's got a few comments earlier, and he said, now Jerry B, being the way Jerry B is, it's cool to see you guys have a blue shit grinder, talking about a blue shirt grinder, talking about for the Rangers. That's cool, I guess. It would be cooler if you had a legendary Islander. I mean, the Isles on Isles crew is interviewing Dennis Potvin, but I guess it's only because they're part of the Isles media cartel.
Very true. See, here's the thing. We certainly couldn't be ourselves. Here's the thing. If Dennis Potvin
walk on eggshells, talking with Dennis Potvin and you know all the greats like that, we would still ask. We'd have to walk on eggshells, though.
If Denny came on this podcast, by the end, he'd never do their podcast again. That much I could guarantee you.
Oh, stop, goodness.
And you got to remember, I couldn't say I love Dennis Potvin.
I was about to say I feel like you would just be sitting there with a smile, just like a never-ending smile on your face, being like, "Oh my God, you're my hero." I don't know what you'd be like, grumpy old man. I don't know if it would be out of character for you. It would be like putting Superman next to some kryptonite. Is exactly what it would be. I don't think you. Yeah, I think it would, Grump.
But I will say he's one of my all-time favorite Islanders. Maybe, I mean, very close to number one.
Brian P said, "My dad, the Rangers fan, would like this episode. LOL. What's up, TJ Grump? And welcome, Mike." We got Master Lego Yoda saying, "Hey, what's up, guys?" Sean Miller saying, "I was at one of those skill classes with Mike."
Wow. Okay.
I'm gonna say, you want to talk about a small world, a really small world. And then you got Brian P saying, "Al's misery representing." What's up, D Cut? D Cut saying, "BP in the house."
There's my boys. Isles misery rated R. Always supportive of TJ and the Grumpy Old Man. The Islanders Never Say Die podcast. You can never ever question their loyalty. That much I'll tell you.
That is true, Grumpy. That's true. No question in that. Sal P said, I'm sorry. Brian P said, Kenny Bumgardner, aka Bomber. He made a metal song. I bought the single. Really?
I don't remember him having a music career, but I remember him as a fighter for certain.
Oh man. I was about to say, it's funny to see how things kind of deviate away once you know.
And it's funny, Mike described himself as a middleweight. That's what he was in the land of the Giants back then. It's the truth.
I was about to say, because I mean, it's funny also. You always think to yourself, all right, how often do these NHL, NFL teams fudge, the numbers, how tall a guy is, how much they weigh, items like that. It's funny to hear him say, yeah, they had me measured at 6'1", maybe 6 foot flat if I'm lucky on, a good day when I'm a little tall and I get a good night of sleep, I'm 6 foot. And they had me listed at 6'1", about 15, 20 pounds heavier than I was. It's always funny to see that.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Brian Peel saying Hunter's hit on Turgeon was one of the cheapest hits of all time. Scumbags still won't own it.
And Brian, I don't know if you listened to the Robbie Shrimp podcast or not, but he said that Hunter's excuse was he did not hear the whistle. It's a lie. It's a lie. Maybe he didn't hear the whistle, but unless he went blind out on the ice, there's no way he didn't see what happened.
Do you know what cap or fact means, Grumpy?
A fact?
Cap or fact? Cap
or fact. Yeah, like something that's true. Fact.
So cap means that I think it's
baseball cap.
I'm going to sound really, really dumb if I get this wrong, or really out of hip. I'm going to sound not very hip and out of the lingo. But cap means something is fake, and fact means something is real. So if they're doing something, that's how the young people say it's cap or fact.
Oh, I thought it was cap like bust a cap, something like that. Bust a cap.
I couldn't even tell you why they utilize the word cap as fake, cap or no cap. I couldn't tell you, but I just know that was definitely one of those stories. For all the younger listeners, that was a story that would be totally cap.
I can just tell you the reason why they do that is because they have nothing to do in their lives. So they want to reinvent things that we already have words for. Let's just try to change it up to make ourselves look even more stupid than we are.
We also got a comment here. Brian P. also saying, if the Islanders and the Rangers met in the playoffs, it would ignite the rivalry.
I think another reason why the rivalry has died down.
Oh man, oh man. First, we get a little hit of Mike Hartman having some technical issues, and now we've got the grumpy old man who's running across some issues himself. Looky there, Grumpy. Oh man, oh man. I'm gonna have to berate him later. Grumpy, your internet went out. I said first we had Mike Hartman having some internet issues, and now the grumpy old man.
Yeah, but I'm right back here. The thing I was saying about the rivalry is I don't think you see it as much, and I thought maybe we would see a little bit more of it last year, having all those games against one another. But I just think it's the physicality of the game is gone. So I think that kind of hurts the rivalry a little bit.
Rivalry. How'd you say
the
that?
rivalry. That's Southern for rivalry. The rivalry. So I think that hurts it a little bit. And like I said, the lack of physicality in the game and the fact that we don't play teams as much as we used to anymore. And you got to remember free agency also, right? So many players change teams every year. It's not like you have the same guys on the team year after year after year where you could build up that hatred.
Scott L saying, I think the streak was 13 or 14 games the Islanders beat the Rangers at the Coliseum before that game of Healy getting pulled. And he also said Healy got taken by Anaheim in the expansion draft.
Okay. Yeah, I knew there was something. It was an uproar. It's like, how did you expose him?
William C. saying, as an Islanders fan, I respect Mike. He's got a Stanley Cup ring. Kudos to him. Can't argue with that. Rangers have a great team. Islanders, unfortunately, will start to slump in 2 years with the Geezer squad.
I agree. I hate to say it, but I agree with that.
Mike M. also saying here, looking good team. Mike Montemora was talking about, he said, talking about Mike Hartman saying, no, and he didn't do the denture commercials, grumpy old man. He did the hair loss commercials.
Well,
I said, well, hey, he's fitting right in here with the podcast if that's the case, because I'm always saying, Rogaine, if they ever want to officially sponsor, we've got 2 phonically impaired individuals that host a podcast. If Rogaine or any other type of hair treatment ever wants to sponsor this podcast, we will gladly accept.
Without a doubt. Maybe, I just got a couple little spots I need touched up. That's it. Mike Montemora, on the other hand, man, he might as well just go to Maury's Wigs. That's the only chance he's got.
Talking about the joke that I went right over you, Mike M., I got to give you some credit. He said Grumpy's joke just got Del Cold pass right over.
Now that is absolutely. Thank you so much, Michael. That is perfect. I love it. Now look how tough Michael looks. You see how tough he looks? He looks very tough in that picture.
Oh man, he does. Scott L. Sorry, misses. Mike, when Messier made the guarantee in game. Oh shit, I'm sorry.
Yeah, man, that's a question you should ask. Good job, TJ, not getting that question in.
Oh goodness gracious. Versus God Almighty. I apologize, Scott. We're gonna have to have Mike back on the podcast. Make sure we save that one in the memory bank. Man, oh man, though. Grumpy, I love having a guest like that who does bring the human element to it. And like the stories about Mark Messier today. And again, we're not Ranger fans by trade or anything like that. We're all Islander fans. Yeah. But, respecting the sport of hockey and respecting the professionalism is something completely different. The level of respect and the level of how highly I revere Mark Messier after hearing those stories are at a completely different level now. And again, like as a person too, it's impossible not to root for a guy like that when you hear stories about how he would go out. And again, he treats even the guy who's just watching the practice. And again, who's just there wanting to have something to belong to, wanting to have somewhere to belong. Now hey, they ingratiate and they bring him in and part of the team. I mean, that type of story right there, it always gives me goosebumps when I hear stuff like that. It's surreal.
Yeah. Those are the things that I love. To me, the hockey thing is the hockey thing, but the personal angle. That's why whenever I watch the Olympics, I love the personal stories that they tell about certain athletes. I just find that so entertaining. And you're right. Talk about mad respect for Mark Messier from me. I always heard he was a good guy and great leader, but just listen to some of those stories. Like, man, he just went from here to up there. There's a reason why players like that, true leaders, get the most out of a team. There's a reason.
Oh yeah, for certain, having a strong leadership core, just like the Islanders do, you will never see later on in life any of these players ever unhappy about their their time with the Islanders. Your leadership core is there, and again, this is just like it was during that Rangers time period. I'd have to say we probably are looking at the same exact thing with the Islanders' current roster. These people would do anything and put anybody in front of any other teammate just to make sure that they're able to, as a unit, have success.
Yes, without a doubt.
Scott L saying Jay Miller was the Carl Racky young blood movie reference.
You didn't have to tell me that was from Youngblood. I know it. I'm gonna carve you up, Racky. I mean, man, that was good stuff. That was great. I just remember Racky looked like he was about 35, and then Rob Lowe was playing who was playing Dean Youngblood. And man, they went at it at the end, and if you could believe it, this only Hollywood. Youngblood, who just learned how to fight in the barn with his dad the day before, 2 days before, is able to beat the Muhammad Ali of the whatever hockey league they were in. It was great. Okay, I love Youngblood, just by the way.
I will tell you,
again was super hot in that movie.
I was shocked, and again, now Youngblood, great movie, no doubt. I was shocked. I'm looking at the comment. I was shocked that he received, and again, it wasn't like a whole bunch during his career, but he received, some anti-Semitism during his playing day. I was shocked by that, and the story made the Orlando Sentinel, and you're just kind of like, oh man, those type of things that you think about how many different instances there are in sports to where something outlandish happens, but in the what do they call it, the 24-hour news cycle, all those stories you never hear of again. You'll never it never gets brought up, items like that. I'm not saying that, hey, we should be bringing this up on a consistent basis, but it's something that you'd never would have expected. Oh, grumpy old man's having some more technical difficulties. Man, oh man, I'll tell you, we're gonna have to send a internet technician out to your house, grumpy old man, due to your inability to keep connection.
You know what? Don't start.
Oh, grumpy. What can I tell you? You gotta, I used to have the internet issues, but then I hardwired an Ethernet cord into my laptop, and I haven't had the issue since. All I'm saying is, Grump, maybe you should venture into it, Grumpy. We're trying to bring your production value up. John P said, "Hello, gentlemen. It's been a while. Long story. Hope you're well. I just signed on. What's Mike's opinion on Clark Jethro Gillies as a player, and when he would mix it up? And I apologize if you already addressed it. Now, I'll tell you the story about them rooming together. That's absolutely insane. He would keep the Stanley Cup ring out and about. You know what I mean? Like, I know Mike had his, in his safe and everything like that. It's funny to think that.
And he never looks at it. He never looks at the ring.
He was telling us beforehand. He never looks at the ring. Even for old Ranger events when he'd have reunions, he never would bring the ring around. And it's just different people had different. They utilize their items differently. I mean, to think that Clark Gillies had his just laying out on the countertop. That's crazy.
And I think he was scared to even look or touch the ring, afraid he was going to knock it in a toilet bowl or in a sink in the bathroom. So he was scared. I think he left this part out. He probably used to go outside in the woods at the hotel to go to the bathroom because he was scared of getting near that ring.
Jerry B also said, "Don't lie and say that TJ's young and handsome. He's past his prime in a scrub." Oh.
There you go. I mean, he paid you a compliment, talk about putting you over. My God.
Oh, goodness gracious. That's why I know he was grumpy. It was ultimate compliment. That was for sure. Brian B said, "Great stories." Oh man. And then Jerry B saying, laughing my ass off, Trevor Gillies was in the record-setting game versus Pittsburgh when it was an all-out brawl like 11 or 12 years ago. Oh man, that's gonna be fun to ask him questions about that. That's for certain.
Oh yeah, he was a rough and tumble player. Yeah.
Scott L also saying, guys, you have to ask Trevor when he comes on the show about the 2011 Pittsburgh fight that night at the Coliseum. Ooh.
I bet you everybody asked him about that.
I was about to say, we're going to ask him about it, but everybody asks him about that, but hopefully we're able to find some information, some cool twists to it, to make it fun or different.
He was always a crowd favorite. Always.
Oh yeah.
Players like that, the fans naturally gravitate, and they're all good people. I wasn't joking before when I said most of these guys, who are the rough and tumble type, the goon label type, all good people, nice people. I mean, you can't believe it. I mean, but that's, they're so different than they are on the ice. And just every fan base loves those players, every single one.
And Scott L saying Goodfellas reference, nice Grumpy with Murray's wigs.
Not Murray, Maury's wigs.
Maury.
Not Murray's wigs, Maury's wigs.
What can I say? I'm sorry, Grump. Also,
you better pay me that money.
Jerry.
All right, kid. All right, kid.
Hey, Grump, who would win in a fight? Teach hair, Josh Bailey. On skates, Josh Bailey. Who would? Oh, okay.
No, come on. Even with you leading with your chin, Josh Bailey. You know he punches like this.
I'm not sure I could fight on skates. I don't know. I give Josh Bailey the up on that. Josh Bailey, okay, Josh Bailey would never fight. Josh Bailey's not a fighter. I think you could go up there and stick him in the crotch and he wouldn't fight. He's just not a guy who would fight.
All I have to say is that Josh Bailey is no Ronda Rousey. That much.
Oh, Jesus. Mario's saying, what do you guys make of the rumor that Lamoriello has signed Chara? Now, you were telling me about this before the podcast, Grump, and I said, I can't even think about that, Grump. We've got Mike Hartman coming on. We got to be prepped. So tell me, Grumpy old man, you said that you also saw this in the Islanders Inquirer.
No, not the Islanders Inquirer. Lighthouse Hockey.
Oh, God.
But you know what? Here's the thing. I like to read them. They're a little bit later, and they don't throw as much garbage up against the wall. And I didn't see anything else just besides it. You know, they said that, Parise and Chara. I'm like, oh, my God. No. Christ. No. If that's your answer, we might as well just start next off season when we won't do anything.
Man, oh man, you want to talk about a huge step backwards if you're saying, hey, we've replaced Nicoletti with Zdeno Chara. We've taken let's say even a lateral move with Paul. Technically you could say, hey, we've signed back Paul Mary and we've now lost Jordan Eberle. We could say even that's a lateral move. And maybe you could say, hey, we've upgraded the third line left wing. We've taken a marketable step backwards if we've replaced Nicoletti with Zdeno Chara.
Yeah. No doubt about it.
Only in 2021.
Another leader. I mean, he's another leader type in the dressing room, right? All right. We're filled with leaders. We need more talent. I'm just sorry. We do.
Would a film said, maybe I can hook you up with Dallas Drake. He'd be a great guest. He was an Islanders fan. Mike Hartman was fantastic. What a films. We'd love to have him on. I'll tell you now, Mike was fantastic. That is for certain. And Mike Montemore also saying he brought it for youth hockey. Kids loved it. And talking about Conrad McCade for the Checkers.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Man, some of those names, I'm just listening. It's like, my God, you don't hear him for a while. It's like, yeah, I remember him. Maybe it's that early onset dementia I have, but it's like, yeah, I can remember the old things, just nothing new.
Oh, man. Grumpy old man. Oh, and I know today we're having a guest on like Mike Hartman. So definitely one of those items, Grump. We're not going to talk too much Islanders news, but hopefully we're able to provide, the listeners of this week's podcast or this day's podcast, a little bit of an escape from, daily life and thinking about a little hockey oriented thought. Right, Grumpy?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I was about to wrap the podcast up.
Okay. I thought there were more comments. You wanted to get to a couple more comments.
Oh yeah, we'll get. Now these are some movie comments, Grump. Anytime I see these, I'm like, "Ooh, movie comments." And
I love the movie. I love the movie comments. Those are the ones I want to talk about.
He said, "Goodfellas, great movie." However, The Godfather 1 and 2 are the best.
John, I'm so glad you're back to commenting on the podcast. We're sorry we missed you for a while. Glad you're back, and you're 100% correct.
Oh, absolutely,
200% correct.
And then Jerry B also saying, hey, boys, I think NYI Hockey Now is the best Islanders media outlet at the moment.
I don't want to pump somebody else. I'm going to say it's TJ and the Grumpy Old Man, but I will check them out.
And Scott L saying, Stephen Thomas and Peter Zezel were in young. I'm sorry, Grump. I didn't know all the young blood characters' names.
Steve Thomas and Peter Zezel were NHL players.
Oh. Well, that makes me look even more embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. What can I say? With a young Keanu Reeves, who was the goalie for the Mustangs.
Very true.
Hold on. Keanu Reeves was in Youngblood?
Yep. That's right.
Wow. I've got to go back and rewatch Youngblood is what you're telling me, Grump.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, goodness.
Classic.
Goodness gracious.
They don't have enough hockey movies.
They don't. I mean,
the pipes, they're calling me.
That's what Mike Montemore said. The pipes. The pipes, they're calling me. Maury sang that in Goodfellas when he was talking to
Oh, jeez, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. What was Ray Liotta's character's name? Why can't I remember his name now? I can't remember.
Anyway, Grumpy. Now I want to address
Henry was his name. Jimmy Conway was that was Robert De Niro. Henry Hill. That's what it was. Henry, my boy.
Well, Grumpy, before we wrap things up, do you have anything you'd like to say to the listeners, the people of the live stream? Now, we will not be going live. I probably should have mentioned this right off the top. We will not be going live this Saturday. I'll be out of town.
What are you doing out of town? Why are you out of town again?
Grumpy. I have to keep that item. I'll keep it under wraps, Grumpy. But I will not be in town this Saturday. But next Wednesday, again, we'll be going live. We're going to have Randall from the Zoo Band, and now we're going to be getting filled in on all the stories back during the Garth Snow and Mike Milbury days. Oh my goodness. You want to talk about a wealth of information and stories that I'm sure people are going to love hearing. That's also going to be a fantastic podcast. But Grump, before we wrap things up today, is there anything else you'd like to say?
I just want to say love and laughter to everyone who listens and even those who don't. From TJ and the Grumpy Old Man, don't forget to listen tomorrow night. I'm making the supreme sacrifice, missing opening night in the NFL with our hero, Tom Brady, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers starting off their Super Bowl defense over the Dallas Cowboys. We will be doing the TJ and the Grumpy Old Man podcast tomorrow at what time, TJ?
It's going to be 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You can find that in the link. You could find that in the link in the description below. But thank you, Grumpy, for making sure you plugged that one. And thank you for being a part of the podcast. I want to thank everybody who listened to the podcast. Thank, again, Mike Hartman for coming on today. And thank you everybody who listened. Again, Grumpy and I are two avid hockey supporters who love talking the sport, love talking with people who have had great experience with it, and speaking with you guys and interacting with you guys on the live stream. It's always something that Grumpy Old Man and I love to do. And I know that, hey, it's the off season, but we're still going to provide great content. And we're getting ready, ramping up for this year's regular season. Another great year of Islanders action. Now, all I'm going to say is Grumpy Old Man and I, after this podcast tonight, we've got a little meeting to make sure we can go ahead and start getting the shirt designs done. So we're working on it, guys. I'm working on it. We haven't forgotten about you. But thank you, everybody, for listening. And thank you again, Grumpy Old Man.
My pleasure.